So before you begin the game, you can see a how to play screen. It'll show you the objective and the controls. So now let's begin. So one thing we spent a lot of time on was the slope mechanic. So as you can see, when you walk up the hill, there's a little bit of resistance. And when you go down, you go slightly faster. If you hold the X button, you can run, which can make going up slopes a little bit easier. So the objective of this level is to try to ease you into the mechanics in a safe environment. So right here demonstrates how the steeper the slope is, faster you'll be running. Once the character starts running on all fours, that's when you know she's going as fast as she can. So here we're greeted to a big wall that we can't jump over. So we have to wall climb over. You can wall climb by holding the run button. As of right now, it's a little stingy to jump from one wall to another. Currently, the music doesn't fade out to the wind sound like at all. So that's another thing we're going to be working on. Ideally, in the future, out in the distance, you would see a city that's on fire. That will give you the motivation to jump off the cliff and go make sure the city is okay. So ideally, in the future, we want to replace that cutscene with a boss battle. And same with this story sequence so far. So we want to be able to tell this story all through the gameplay and not through cutscene or walls of text. We currently have it this way just to save on time. So you can pause the video if you want to read the story, but for now, we're just going to continue forward. So this first playthrough will simulate what maybe a new player might do first time they play. Right now, I'd like to bring attention to the mountain in the background. It's not going to do anything in this playthrough, but in following playthroughs, it's going to be doing some unique stuff. So a first time player may just blindly hold right and see where the path takes them. So that's one potential playthrough. Now let me show you some others. Just to make it simple, I've added a skip intro button so you don't have to watch the cutscene every time. So a second time through, the player might see these platforms and miss them at first, but then decide to take this lower route here. As you can see, the fog in the background is all done using procedural generation. Currently, all the layers in the background are placeholders as of now. In the future, I would like to make this part an extra steep slope instead of just a wall. So that was the middle route. In the final game, each route is going to lead to a different level. So let's take these platforms this time. Now let's take the top path here. Now if you fall down this pit here and travel back, you'll notice that we're actually in the same route as we were in the previous playthrough. I believe the more we try to intertwine these routes, the more replayable the level will become. Now that that route is done, I would like to show you how these routes can intertwine. If you fall down this pit, you'll end up in the middle path. If you jump and climb here, you can climb up to the middle path. Now I'd like to show you how the mountain behaves in the background. So right now you can see that the mountain translates left to right. As soon as you climb up this cliff, the mountain will now rotate in place instead. You can also notice the parallax backgrounds in behind the mountain also change direction as well. So you can notice that the mountain is rotating here, but as soon as I jump down the pit into the bottom path, the mountain will translate left to right again. And here's a look at the pause menu. As you can see the control layout and how to play blurb, as well as the continue and exit game. So as for our currently known bugs, there is a weird short hop that happens occasionally when traveling down slopes sometimes. So you'd be running down a slope and suddenly the character would hop and would kill your momentum. Sometimes when the player jumps and hits a ceiling, the character will stick to the ceiling. Occasionally when running, the player will go into the climbing animation when she shouldn't be. When trying to climb a wall, you can't simply walk into it and start climbing. You have to jump right into it. When the mountain starts to rotate in place, the parallax layers in behind it stutter and jump to a different location. So this is a short list of stuff we want to incorporate in the future. First off, we only have one type of enemy, which is the enemy with the spike on its head. In the future, we want to make a lot more enemies with different ways to defeat them and strategies to overcome. As mentioned before, the wall climbing is a little stingy, so we want to change it up so it's more forgiving. So right now there's a lot of placeholder assets, including the background parallax layers. The enemies are currently placeholder. Some sound effects are placeholder, and the portals at the end of the level are currently placeholder. So we want to replace those with unique assets in the future. As I mentioned earlier, we want to adjust the momentum physics so the player is able to go up and down steeper slopes, because as of right now, if the slope is too steep, then the player will try to climb them. You may have noticed some grass tufts sprouting up from the ground. Those were placed there manually. So ideally in the future, we would like to automate that instead of having to do it manually, because it takes a lot of time to do so. We would like to have a dynamic camera that zooms in and out depending on what's happening on screen. So for example, an enemy might appear on screen and the camera might zoom out to give you a better look at your battlefield. Power-ups would be a nice feature to have. Like some examples could be an invincibility, maybe an extra hit, or a 1-up. Doors that lead to different areas, so you might enter a door and it could bring you somewhere else. Right now there are no invincibility frames, so if you get hit by an enemy and you fall back into that enemy, the enemy will damage you again, so that can be a little unforgiving. Right now I just have the bare minimum for the player sprite. In the future, I'd like to make her more expressive. So for example, she could have like a tail wagging animation or maybe an idle animation. We'd like to have a settings menu where you can adjust the controls. So for example, one of our group members suggested that maybe instead of holding the shift button to climb up a wall, it could be a toggle instead. As of right now, the level is a little bit bare, so I'd like to have more sprites of like flowers or trees, or maybe like a campfire, or maybe some like log cabins. So I was thinking that to help encourage exploration, there could be maybe like some collectible items hidden throughout the level. So for example, there could be like 3 golden balls of yarn, and if you find all 3 well-hidden golden balls of yarn throughout the level, you may unlock something. And of course, we want to replace the cutscene and story text with in-game interactions.